Hey everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm playing in the Tier 8 Premium British medium tank. It is the Centurion 5-1, and this is also known as, I guess, the Australian Sherman, as this vehicle did see service with the Australians in Vietnam. Now, the main differences between the Centurion 5-1 and the regular Centurion is that this vehicle doesn't really have the side covers that you see over the front of the tracks and also over the side. Now, actually, in World of Tanks, this counts as 8mm of spaced armor, and so this vehicle, in theory, is worse against high explosive rounds splashed on the side or against very low caliber rounds when you actually sometimes get into a good matchup at Tier 8. Then those low caliber rounds might be easier to go through the side of the Centurion 5-1. However, this vehicle, on the other hand, does pack a very nice upper plate. It's got 120mm of upper hull armor, which means that when you're using your gun depression and your opponents do hit the upper plate of this vehicle, it actually bounces. Whereas everybody knows that the standard Centurion, its hull armor is absolutely garbage. Now, the standard Centurion has always been a funny one in World of Tanks. When I first got to it, I kind of liked it because it was just such a resilient tank to have on a ridgeline with decent turret armor and, of course, 10 degrees of gun depression. And the highlight of that tank back then was its awesome standard penetration, 226. I believe it was the highest penetration of any of the Tier 8 vehicles at the time, or at least the mediums, and I could compete with the heavies as well. Now, obviously, the problem is that since then, it feels like all of the other mediums have had their penetration upped and upped and upped, and so it doesn't really feel like it's a speciality of the tank anymore. And originally, the Centurion was limited to 40 kilometers an hour, which made it a very slow tank, and its turret armor was nothing like it is now on either the standard Centurion or on the Centurion 5-1, as its turret armor has been significantly buffed. Now the Centurion's able to go at 50 kilometers an hour, and finally make use of that quite powerful engine on this vehicle, and so it's quite mobile. The only thing that really sucks about this vehicle is just the profile is horrific, right? That it's almost impossible to try and hide the tank when you're caught out in the open, which is why you will see me in this replay pretty much just staying in this location right up until the end, dominating on a ridgeline, because that's where you have to be putting the Centurion, right? Now, when this vehicle came out in April last year, I've kind of got used to it now, but really it is the kind of a definition of pay to win in World of Tanks. The fact that this vehicle is just flat out better than the standard Centurion is simply outrageous. But it's something that I've had to get used to, and I feel like are you a broken record if you just keep highlighting it every single time? Well, I think I have to be a broken record, because the second that I don't, I just feel like I'm some kind of a marketing outreach of wargaming. Sure, I love to focus on the positives of World of Tanks, and sure, I like to play my premium vehicles, but I have to admit, on a tank like this, where it's just flat out better than the standard vehicle, I always feel a little bit guilty when I'm playing it. Now, when I say this vehicle being flat out better than the standard vehicle, I'm not joking. It's got better dispersion values when it's moving, it's got better dispersion values when it's turning the turret. It also has a more powerful engine which gives it a better power to weight ratio. However, it does have an issue when it comes down to the ground resistances on this vehicle. Even though they're the same, because Wargaming have hidden statistics that they don't even show you on websites like TanksGG, the traverse speed of this tank is actually worse than that of the standard Centurion. But that's literally it, apart from a slight hit point disadvantage at 1,400 instead of 1,450, which I really feel they've kind of done just to give you something to say, oh, but the standard Centurion's better. It's just flat out worse. And the fact that this thing packs that 120mm of upper hull armor, whereas the standard Centurion is packing about 70 or 80mm of hull armor, you'd be crazy if you have both of these vehicles to ever play the standard Centurion. Also, the fact that this one just looks cool, right? And it crew trains like a boss. And as you might be seeing in the post-game stats, it makes credits like a boss as well. Alright, now that that is out the way, you know about the vehicle, you know about my opinion about how this thing is just flat out better than the standard Centurion, and it's something that Wargaming should definitely be chastised for. Let's focus on the gameplay. So I've been dominating this ridge, and that's because this position is just completely key on this map. If you can lock down this position in a vehicle like this with decent turret armor, and as you're going to be seeing standard rounds throughout this replay, we can spot, and we just took a hit from a 155mm tier 9 turreted tank destroyer there, 750 damage blocked, with the beautiful turret armor that this tank has. Really, I would sit in front of anything in this tank if I'm on a ridgeline, and if I'm using my gun depression significantly. I would even expose my upper hull in this vehicle, but I would never expose my upper hull in the standard Centurion. And so that just makes this vehicle so awesome for being very resilient, and when you combine that with a decent penetration, you just feel like the boss. You don't feel like you're having to spend credits to be able to work a ridge, and you feel like it doesn't matter if the enemies are equal tier or higher tier, or even 2 tiers higher, the Centurion can still be an absolute monster. Now, of course, when you start to deal with tier 10 tanks, the step up in penetration of 226 up to 258 can be rather useful. But, you know, in this kind of a matchup where we're in +1, you be the judge of how good the penetration is on, the standard penetration is, at least on the Centurion. Alright, now one thing I want to highlight in this video as well, this is probably one of the key things that I want all of you to take from this video, is that quite often you see me playing a rather flashy kind of playstyle, right? You see me playing a Bat Chatillon or a tier 10 light tank and bombing it around the map and being very aggressive and getting myself into reckless positions. Sometimes things will go well, but for every game that you see on YouTube that goes well, there's probably about 4 or up to 9 games that I would have failed in that situation. I've never hid that. That's something I want to make very clear, and that's why I've been doing a lot of more live gameplay, especially on my free-to-play account on the channel recently, when I've been combining those two things, and those 30-minute videos even have been immensely popular. I'm not going to do them all the time. I still want to make them a little bit of a special thing, but I just want to highlight that not every game that goes as well as you see when I'm making ridiculously reckless, aggressive plays makes it to this channel. So what I'm trying to say is that a lot of people sometimes watch my streams or watch my YouTube videos and they say to me, oh, I tried to emulate what you do and it just doesn't quite work out. Well, with aggression in World of Tanks, if you're able to calculate it through experience, it's not so reckless. But also, there's nothing wrong in just finding a dominant position and holding it. And when I'm feeling very chill, like I was when I played this game, and this was last weekend during my premium tank showcase, it can be very rewarding to just relax and hold a position, especially on a map like this when it looks like you're outnumbered and there are even high tier tanks on the enemy team. Just hold your location and wait for the other flank to be able to advance. You don't have to win the flank necessarily. Sometimes it's enough just to hold the flank for long enough to allow your team on the other flank to be able to win, and then that allows you, at the end of the game like this, to notice when it's time to push out and be able to farm up. And so I've left the location that I was at C2 for the first time in pretty much the last 6, 7, 8 minutes. But it's also very important to realize when it is time to push, because this is the stage of the game where even if I was to die right now, it wouldn't mean anything. But this is my opportunity to pick up a lot of experience, a lot of spotting through that as well, or shall I say tracking, and have a little bit of fun as well. That WTR Panzer IV probably liked that 273 RAM, which is going to allow me to finish him off with the second shot. Yeah, that was a little bit reckless, but you know what? At this stage, we've got nothing to lose, right? Okay, so the T10 has turned round, bombing straight towards us. We put one round into the lower plate. I narrowly avoid the VK shell, and now I need to pull backwards when I see him aiming at the front of my vehicle. He bounces off my upper plate, and I laugh it off, as we are now up to 2,600 damage blocked in this tank. Not a bad result, and just a VK between us and a glorious victory. Alright, so nearly over 6k damage combined so far this game, and now that I know that the VK is fired, I am thinking, should I shoot his lower plate? Nah, you know what, I'm just going to go for the track, because there's a Scorpion coming up behind him, and there's an artillery that's going to hit him. Now I might as well get the extra 574 tracking while I'm at it. Probably more valuable than picking up the extra damage. I'm not so sure if it's more valuable than securing your 6th kill of the game and picking up a top gun though. And so this is something that I really wanted to stress and highlight in this game. That sure, you see me play flashy, especially when I stream. I try to pick the most flashy games for my YouTube channel as well, because that's what YouTube is all about. I think it's about entertainment, or alternatively, presenting knowledge. And while aggressive playstyles may be, in my opinion, the most entertaining and fun for me to play at the time, they might not always have the best results. What we did in this game in the Centurion 5-1 can in no way be described as flashy. We held a position, albeit in my opinion the most important location on the map. We waited for our team to be able to win the opposing flank, and then we went in to mop up. A very standard cookie cutter game of World of Tanks, anything but a highlight. But the results for themselves don't lie. This was 18,395 experience, although this was during some kind of a 10,000 bonus experience event that Wargaming was holding last weekend. 10, but this is still 1,805 base experience points. That's a phenomenal result in any tank, and as we didn't fire any premium rounds this game, 203,000 credits profit, although with a 50% credit booster. And so unless you've got your mates around for some reason, you're playing World of Tanks and they're watching you, sometimes there's no need to try and make flashy plays. Just holding the most important location is enough to dominate the game. And just keep in mind that while I try to play World of Tanks as aggressively and as flashy as I can to try and make an otherwise rather slow game entertaining and fun, is definitely not always necessary or even the right thing to do. And so that's it for today, ladies and gents. I hope you enjoyed this video, or maybe it was just useful to you. If it was, please give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the Centurion 5.1, and especially how the vehicle kind of stacks up compared to the regular Centurion, but I don't know, that's a bit of a baited question here, really. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.